Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining. This is day 14 of Oracle Integration Training, and in this session we will talk about a stage file, and we'll see that what all operations we can perform using a stage file and where we can use a stage file in our integrations. Everything we are going to discuss in this video. So let's start with a stage file. So in Oracle integration, a stage file is an action, and that action help us to work on files in OIC. So that when we are talking about work on file on OIC, files in OIC, it includes that creating the file in OIC, that we are getting data from somewhere else, that source system. It can be database table, or it can be as a request payload, or it can be that API response, anything. We just have data. Based on that data, we can create file using a stage file operations or a stage file action. We can read the file. So suppose we have file available in OIC and we want to read the content of the file or data of the file. We need to use a stage file action for that. We can obviously we can append the file. So when we are saying append the file, so file is already created in OIC and we have to merge few other records. We can do using a stage file only. And we can create zip file using stage. We can unzip the zip file. If suppose we are getting zip file at file server and we have to unzip the file and we have to do operations on that file, we can do all these things using stage file only. So we'll see one by one that what all operations available in OIC with the help of a stage file. So here you can see that a stage file provide operations like read entire file, read file in segment. These two operations is clear with the name only, that these two operations are going to use for reading the data of the specific file. And then write file operation help us to create the file in OIC. We have zip file operations, we have unzip, encrypt, decrypt, and we have last is list file operations. We'll discuss all these things one by one. So whenever we are talking about a stage file action, so a stage file is going to perform operations on file. That file should be available on virtual directory, OIC virtual directory. And if we are going to read the file, that file should be in OIC virtual directory. Or if we are going to create the file using a stage file, that file will be created in OIC virtual directory. So now what is this virtual directory term we are using, right? So virtual directory is something, a space when we are creating integration, and until that integration is in running a status, that a specific space is called virtual directory. So once integration will be stopped, that virtual directory will be vanished, and whatever files and operations we perform on that specific directory or location, that will be removed. So automatically when we will provide any of the directory while creating the file, that directory will be created using a stage file only. That is virtual OIC virtual directory. So you cannot see the directory anywhere in that file server or anything. So that about virtual directory. And one more thing we have to discuss about a stage file is that a stage file is not a connection or adapters. That's why we cannot use a stage file as a trigger point. So even not a trigger point or not a invoke point. So trigger and invoke both concept comes on with the connection only. If we are going to add connection in our integration, then we are going to use term as trigger connection or invoke connection or trigger endpoint or invoke endpoint. But when we are talking about a stage file, so this stage file is a action. So we can say that we have to add a stage file action or a stage file endpoint in our integration. So that's endpoint term we can use for a stage file. So let's move to that operations provided by a stage file. So the first operation is read entire file. So read entire file operations of a stage file action allow us to read the file which is available in OIC virtual directory. That file in OIC virtual directory can be coming from file server, or it can be we downloaded from UCM server or somewhere else. So when we are talking about OIC virtual directory and we have to read the file available there, it means that, for example, we have a file at file server, and that file we want to consume in OIC, and whatever data we have in the file, we want to insert all the data into that any database table. So first we have to pick the file from file server, then we have to put the file in OIC, and then in OIC using a stage file we can read the content of the file. So when we are saying that we have to pick the file from file server and put the file in OIC, that we are saying that we are picking the file from file server and we are putting the file into OIC virtual space, virtual directory. That's the concept of virtual space. And now read entire file option will allow you to read complete file in a single hit only. So when we are saying that read complete file, for example, in our data file we have 100 records, and when we will use read entire file, all these 100 records will be open or read in OIC in a single hit only. That's why the operation name as read entire file. But this operation having their own limitations. The limitation is in generation 2 it was 10 MB of size only. So for example, if we downloaded the file from file server using FTP connections, and now we want to read the content of the file, so using read entire file operation we can read the file up to 10 MB of size only in generation 2. But right now in our practicals and in our sessions we are going to follow OIC generation 3. So in OIC generation 3 the size got updated to 100 MB. It means that if our file size is up to 100 MB, we can use read entire file operation of a stage file, and we can read the file from OIC, OIC virtual directory. And obviously, like while reading the file we have to provide the schema. On schema is something that going to define the nature of file, that file is CSV file or it is text file, or if it is CSV file how many columns are there in the file. So that we have to, that's called a simple file. So while using read entire file operation of a stage file, we have to provide the file format, the simple file which contain the schema, basic schema of the file which we are going to read, so that a stage file can understand that file we are going to read having that much of columns available in that. So that's obvious we are going to learn in our upcoming sessions. Like after this slide we'll go for practical and we'll see that how we can use this one in our integration. Now next we have read file in segment operation. So if you will see, the limitation of read entire file is 100 MB. For example, we downloaded the file from file server, and that file having 95 MB of size. Using read entire file we will be able to successfully read the file. But suppose we downloaded the file from file server and that file having 110 MB of size. In this case, read entire file operation will generate an error that it will not be able to read the file up to 100 MB. That's why in this case we have read file in segment operations. And read file in segment operations allow us to read file up to 1 GB of size. And obvious segment here, in the name of segment it seems it's saying that the chunk it means that batch. So by default when you will use read file in segment operation, so in generation 2 it was 200 2000 fixed, the segment size it was 2000 fixed segment size in generation 2. But in generation 3 they given flexibilities to change the segment, and here you can see I have added the screenshot, and you can see for each and every segment it will read only 2200 to 2000 of records in each and every segment. So here we can provide the segment size, that how much record we want to read in each and every segment. So when we are talking about segment, it means that for example our files, our data file having 900 9000 record, right, and size got up to 100 MB. So all this 900 9000 record will not be loaded or will not be open available in OIC to read. So that's why we will use read file in segment. So read file in segment will read the file or read the content of the file in the batch of 2000 which we will pass here, that are segment side. If we will pass 1000 here, so for each and every batch or each and every iteration, that's known as segment. So each and every segment it will read 1000 of record only, as we provided the segment size as 1000. So this is about read file in segment. And yes, read file in segment operation will allow you to read file up to 1 GB of size. And obviously it's same as that read entire file. So while using this operation you have to provide the simple file structure. Just like for example, if we have a CSV file we are going to read, that CSV file how many columns are there we have to provide in this schema or in the structure of this configuration of a stage file. And when we are reading the file, stage file operations having options to remove the trailer, or we can remove the headers too. So that all we will discuss in our when we will go for practical. So this is all about a read file in segment, and as I told you that when we are using read file in segment operations, so it will iterate the file, it will read the file based on segment size, and it will internally iterate the records. So here you can see this is the stage file action in a stage. When we use a stage file with read entire file operations, it will display or it will add a stage file like this. You can see this is the endpoint. But if you will use a stage file with read file in segment operation, it will display it will display you the stage file in this way. This is the scope. You can see that a scope is, it seems like, you can see this is the for each loop we added internally, but it seems this is a stage file. I given the name of this stage file as read in segment underscore stage, and by default you are able to see this scope, right? So this is the iteration of a stage file. So as if we will provide 2000 as a iteration, or that is segment size, so this scope of a stage file will automatically iterate for each and every 2000 record. For example, our data file having 9000 record, so this stage file iteration, first iteration will pick first 2000 record, next iteration will pick next 2000 record, and so on. So in the last iteration there will be 1000 record only. So in the next iteration of reads in segment operations, it will, there will be 1000 records only. And obvious that each and every iteration we are going to get multiple records, so we can add the loop on that records and we can perform various operations we'll learn in our session. So now next operation we have is write file operation of a stage file. That write file operation allow us to create file in OIC. And when we are talking about create file in OIC, it means that write file operation is going to create file in OIC virtual directory, not on the file server. So first we will create file in OIC virtual directory using a stage file. Then we will use FTP connections. Then FTP connection we will use write file operations, so that a specific stage file which we created in virtual directory, that will be moved to file server. So that's the concept. So a stage file is not working with the file server. So in using a stage file, we are performing operations on file in OIC virtual directory only. To work on file server files, we have FTP connections. So now you can see when we are using write file operations, again write file operation will ask you the schema. It will ask you the sample file format, so that based on that specific sample file format which we will provide, it will generate the file which that syntax or that structure only. Just I will take example of CSV file only. For example, we are going to create CSV file, and that CSV file we want make 4 columns. So we have to provide a simple CSV file here in this while configuring the stage file with write file operations, and that simple file should have 4 columns, so that using this stage file we can create file with all these 4 columns. And when we are talking about a write file operation allow us to append the files. So when we are talking about append the files or append the records, for example, we created one file, that file having 4 records. Later moving to our integrations, we want to add few more records in the same file. That's why here you can see we have append operation, that append tick box. When you will check this append tick box, so whatever file name and the directory you will provide, so if the same file name will be available on the same directory, so instead of creating new file or replacing the file, what it will do, it will just merge the record in the same file only. That's why we have append file operation. I will just show you that how we can use this append file to in our integrations too. Now here you can see, after that where you can see when we are using write file operation, it's asking the schema and the file name. So here you can see I given the file name as employee10013.csv. So our file will be created with this name, and this is the directory where it will create. This is the OIC virtual directory. And now here you can see in the mapping, we have to provide the data. That file will be created, and that file will contain what kind of data. So that data we are going to provide in the mapping. So while reading the file, we don't have mappers. While even it can be that a read file in segment, or it can be read entire file, we don't have mapper. But when we will talk about the write file having the mappers, that mappers will define that what kind of data we are going to pass to this endpoint, so that this endpoint will create the file, and that file will contain that specific records. So that's about write file operations. And here you can see I told you that in write file, when we are providing the schema to create the file, that schema look like this, you can see. So here these all are the columns, which columns we provided as a sample file, so that OIC will internally create files based on this schema which we are going to provide here. So that's about write file operation. So next, coming to operations, in a stage file we have zip file operation. Zip file is something that we are going to create zip in our PC. So zip file will contain more the multiple files, even it can be only one files or it can be more than one files. So that using a stage file only we can create zip file, but obvious while using this zip file operations we have to provide the file name, and the file name should have the extension as .zip, so that the file will be created with this name, and this file will contain all the file available on this specific directory. So here you can see, while writing the file, right, we use write file, and while writing the file we provided the directory as /oic, right? So using this write file operation, this file will be created in this /oic. And now what we are going to do here in the zip file, we are going to provide the same directory. So what this zip file will do, zip file will create a zip file with this name, and whatever number of file available in this directory, it will merge all this file into the single zip file, and it will place the zip file on this specific virtual directory. I given the name, this is the simple name, right? You can provide any name here, it's not mandatory to have already the name, right? So whatever name you will provide, this directory, the virtual directory will be created. Now we have unzip file. Unzip file is also working, so like same, also same only, that whatever directory will be provide, on that specific directory whatever zip file will be there, that zip file will unzip, and whatever file will be there in the zip file, that all files will be placed over the specific unzip directory. So here you can see we given the directory as OIC unzip. So it will pick the zip file, it will extract the file inside the zip file, and it will place the zip file on this specific directory. So this is about unzip file. Then we have list file operation. So list file operation, it's clear with its name only, it's going to give you the list of file available on a specific directory. So here you can see I use a stage file list files operations. Then list file operations, we given the directory from where we want to see which all files are there. Just like cd command in ls command we have in the command mode, right? So we are using ls in Linux to list all the files folder available in that directory. So same we have here, the list file operation in the stage. So is in using a stage list files operations, we will provide the zip file directory, that we will provide the directory from where we want to list all the files, that if we are not aware about that how many files are there in the zip file, and you want to download a list or transform the file from one places to another places, right? So you want to know the name of file, right? So that's why we have list file operation, so that it will return you the list of files available on that specific directory. And here you can see it will ask you the patterns too, that here I provided the patterns name as a star. It means that whatever file with whatever extension are there in this specific directory, give me the list of that file. If you want to see only the CSV file, so you have to provide a star.csv, so that it will only list CSV file available on that specific directory. So that's why we have list file operation. We have two more operations, that encrypt file and decrypt file. So sometimes when we are transforming file from our OIC to any external system, or we are downloading the file from external system to OIC, we have to encrypt or decrypt the file. So using stage file encrypt and decrypt operations, we can perform the encryption or decryption of the file. So obvious, while encrypting the file, we have to provide the encryption key, that PGP key, so that based on that key, it can create the encrypted file of the specific file which we are going to create. So that file will be created in encrypted form. Same way, if we want to decrypt the file, we have to select the decrypt operations, and we have to provide the key to decrypt the file, so that that file will be available in OIC in decrypted mode, and then we can use that specific file. So all these are available in OIC. We can use a stage file to perform operations in OIC using the files. Now last we have notification. Notification is also an action in OIC. In OIC, we are using notification to send an email. That email we can send to a specific email ID, or we can send email to list of people, list of email. That we can use email notification action in OIC to perform or to send the notifications to user. Also, this notification having their own limitations, that whatever text messages we will add in that message body and the attachment we will add in email, that attachment and the text message body should not be more than 2 MB of size. If for example we added the email notification and we added the attachment in the file in the notification, and if that attachment size got more than 2 MB of size, it will generate an error that email notification will not allow to send an email from OIC with more than 2 MB of size. Also, OIC notification allows to add the attachment as we discussed, and we have from to subject and body part where we will add our messages. So when we are saying that we will add our messages, so you can see this is the to whom we have to send an email. It can be a single email or it can be a list of email. We can add CC, BCC, and yes, we can add from email to from which that email should be triggered. So it will be configuration part. We have to configure this in OCI, so that whenever this email will trigger with this from email. And here we have subject. The subject will be like same as that in email whatever we are using. The as this subject is a string value, we have to use single quotes to provide the subject. And then we have body. In the body, whatever message you want to send or to email in the body, you have to write the same messages. Here you can see I given the simple message, hi team, please find attached file and regards OIC support team and all. And here you can see we have option of attachment, so we can provide attachment in the email too. Here we have one more option, that parameters. That parameters define to pass runtime value in email notification. For example, we have the file name in OIC and we want to give the file name here, right? So in the message body we don't have expression builder, so that we cannot map the runtime value here. That's why we have parameters. So first we will create parameters variable. In the parameters variable we will map the file name, and then parameters variable we will use in our body, so that email notification can be sent with that runtime values. And here you can see when we will send an email will be look like this: OIC mail server. This is the mail server configured, and the subject email of testing generated by OIC. This is the subject I given, email of testing. And this is the body, hi team, please find attachment. You can see hi team, please find attachment. So here you can see this email sent to two and my email, and that you can see me. So whatever CC and I use, everything got added there. And here you can see we added the attachment. Attachment is something that file reference we have to add. I will explain you what is the file reference while I will create integrations. So here you can see this is the attachment file, and you can see the file name is same as which we created, employee 10013.csv. This is the same file name I used while using the write file operation. For example, I added a screenshot here. You can see here employee 10013.csv. So this is all about a stage file operations and the notifications. Let's move to the OIC instance and let's have a practical on the same. So let me go to the instance. So here this is our instance. So what I will do first, I will create a file, and what will be the data for file, so I will show you. So let's move to that notepad. I will create one file here. So for example, let me create one CSV file. So I want to create a file, right? So before going to create a file, I will create integration. Our requirement is to create integration. That integration, while running the integration, we will pass some values, and that value will be added in the file, and that file we want over the email. So how we can achieve this requirement? So requirement is create integration to get employee details as request payload and generate a CSV file based on this employee data and send over the email. So this is our requirement. So how we can achieve this requirement? So here you can see, as our requirement is to create a integration which will have the request payload, or which can get some which can take employee data as a parameters, or as running while running the integrations. It means that it's clear with that we will create app driven integration, right? App driven integration we will create. Now this app driven integration we will configure the request payload. That request payload will having the employee details, and in integrations we have to use a stage file to create the file, and we have to use notification to send an email, right? So these two action we will use in our OIC, and obvious in integration if we require other operations we can use that one too. Okay, so let's start. So first, before going to start, I will create JSON payload for employee details, that what all details we want from employee. So for example, this is JSON structure, right? JSON structure start from braces. So I use here, I will give the name as name, and name, for example, I given first name as Alex, and after I will use dob. Let me put as 01 01 20 200. Then after, let me add subject or class, or not class, role. Let me add a role as IT security, and I will add one more column as date of joining. So let me give today date. So 040 05 11 2024. So for example, this is this four details we want to pass to the integrations, so that integration will create file with all these four details. Right, so this is simple file, but I want this details can be multiple records we can pass to the integrations. For passing the multiple records, we have to create this node as a array. So creating the node, we have to provide this multiple values here, right? So Alex, it can be Sam. Here we'll give as OIC developer, something like that. And for making this node as a array, so I will use a square bracket here. This square bracket, this square bracket ended here. So this will be treated as an array, and now obvious in JSON format we required at least one node, so that node can contain all these values. So I will give the node as request data, and here this will be the node for this request data. So this is the way we can create JSON format. So now this will be our integration request payload. Request payload, right? But now we have to create a CSV sample file, so that we can pass this sample file to OIC, so that OIC can create file based on that sample file which will provide. So let's move to that new tab where I will create one CSV file with all these column. So for example, our CSV file will have first column as name, second column as date of birth, third column should be role, and the fourth column, that is date of joining. So that's fine. So now let me add few more columns. Few more columns in OIC I want to add. So when OIC will generate file, it will add few extra columns. That extra column will define like creation date, I want to add created by, and I want to add the integration name. So I want to create CSV file which will contain all these columns, and this will be generated by OIC only. So let me provide few sample values. So few sample values like name as Alex, date of birth is 01 10 2224, date of role is, for example, let's put as IT, date of joining something like, again I will put the same date values. This is just simple values I'm providing here, so that it can create the CSV file. Creation date again I will put the same, created by, let me put as uh, me, any random values or xyz, and integration name is also xyz, so that it can create columns based on that. So now this is our sample file. Let me save this sample file as csv. So I'm just going to save file here, sample employee file.csv. So CSV file will be created with this name. That's the simple CSV file I'm just created here. So now let's move to that OIC. So first we have to create integration. So I will go to that integration part where I will create app-driven integration, so that I have to configure the request payload. And also if you will see, if we can add the response to the integration, it will be more easy to understand, right? So let me add one more response payload. This response payload will be for integration. So what kind of response this integration will return, what I want? So I want this integration should return as a status should be success or error, whatever will be there. I just want to make a column here, and this value we will map in integration, right? A status, and I want to give the name as file name, and whatever file it will create, it will give the file name xyz.csv. Right, that's it. Only these two I want to response from integration. So what we have to do, first we have to go to integration. I will select app driven integration, that is application in generation 3. I will give the name. So I will give the name as FOAS underscore INT 001 underscore stage underscore demo 01 demo underscore 01. So this is our integration name. By default it's taking the identifier. I don't want to do any changes here. I will give the package name here. Let me give the package name as FOAS dot stage and click on create. So new integration will be created, and that integration will be assigned to that specific package that which we given. If you want to see the package name, obviously you just have to click on this setting icon, and here you can see the package which we given and the basic details. If you want to give the details description, you can add here, let it be the same. So now this is after an integration, and here we have to add the trigger connection so that integration can be initiated, can be started, and we can configure the request and response payload. That's why we required REST connection, and few REST connection which we already created. So I will select that connection only, that I give created the connection with the name FOAS underscore REST TRI, that's known as trigger underscore CON. So I will click here. So this connection is added. We have to provide the endpoint name for this connection. So I will just give the name as a start REST. I generally follow this way only. I will click on continue. Here we have to provide that URI, that what will be the URI for this integration. So let me give the URI name as generate file, and here I will put operation as post. So why I'm selecting operation as post? So that I can configure request payload by tick here, and I will configure the response payload by selecting the checkbox here. So now request payload and response payload configuration is like we enable the configuration. Go to next, it will ask to configure the request payload. You can see configure request. So for configure request, I will select the JSON. It's already selected. I have to click here in the inline, and here we have to provide the simple JSON format which we can configure as a request payload of this integration. So let's move to that integration notepad here. This is the payload I created. I will pass this payload here and click on continue. So if your payload will be fine and they don't have any error, it will be submitted and accepted, and you can see below is the automatically selected as JSON. I don't want to do any changes in the media type. Click on continue. You will be able to see the configure response page. Here in the configure response page, we have to configure the response payload of integration. So again, I will select the JSON, and here in inline we have to provide the JSON response payload. This is the JSON response payload. Now I will select here and click on continue. Continue and finish. Let me save this integration so that I don't want to lost any changes here. So here you can see, friend, this value which we provided here, right? This is just for sample values. Just like here in CSV file, we given the sample values so that it can create a structure of CSV file. Same way here in the JSON we provided this value as a simple value, so that JSON this structure of this endpoint can be created, and while running the integrations whatever value we will pass here, that value will be passed to integration. So remember, so now move to integration. So this is our integration. We added the trigger endpoint, and this is the mapper for this trigger endpoint, so that using this mapper it can return the response. Now we have to add the logic so that whatever data user passed here in the request payload, it can create a file based on that, right? So here we have to add the stage file. So I will add the stage file action here. So but before going to add any action, before going to add any action in OIC, I personally prefer to add a sign here, so that I can create variables, so that that variables can be used in our upcoming canvas, integration canvas. So I will give the name of this endpoint as default var, or default assign. Now here if you want to create variables, you can create variables here. So what I will do, I just want to create variables, and that variable will store the file name, so that every time I don't want to put the file name in the mapping only in the stage file, right? So I will just click here, I will create one variable, will give the name as var underscore file name. This is our variable file name. And what file name will be there for this variable? So let me give the name as empxx underscore emp underscore 001 dot csv. For example, this is the file name I want to create. So I given that xx underscore emp underscore 001 dot csv. So this file name I will use to generate the file. So we created one variable, that variable having the file name. I will use this further in our upcoming point. So now here in this endpoint we will get the response, we will get the request from user while running the integration, and this request we have to use while creating the file. So for creating the file in OIC, we have a stage file. So I will use this stage file. You can see here a stage file, this is action. So I will use this stage file action here. After the variable creation I will give the name. So this stage file is going to create the file, right? And which operations we are going to use? We are going to use write file operations to create the file, right? So let me show you that one too. Here you can see write file operation of stage file action allow you to create file in OIC virtual directory, right? So we are going to create the file. So I will give the name as write file, and this is stage action. So I will give the name as stage. Go next. And here you can see choose a stage file operations. Here we have to select the operation, which operation we want to perform using this stage file. So you once you will click here, you will be see lots of operations are there, right? So I have to create the file. So for creating the file we have write file operations. I will select the write file operation here, and when you will click select write file operation, it will ask you the file name, that specify the file name, that which file name you want to create, and specify the output directory where you want to create the file. So the file name which I want to create, I already assigned to the variable. So just click here in the expression builder, and here you can see where file names. I will map this file name here, so that using this write file operation file will be created with this name, and this name store the value as in variable. And here in which directory you want to create. So I want to create in virtual directory, and in virtual directory whatever value you will provide here, it will create internally with this directory only. So let me give the name as xx temp slash temp here. So this stage file will virtually create this directory slash temp, and inside this slash temp it will create the file with this name, right? So I just given the name as slash temp. Let me make a note of this one in notepad so that I didn't forget. So now here we have to just click on continue. Here you can see we have append operation. I don't want to use append operation right now. I will tell you when we have to use append file. So just click on continue. So once you will click on continue, it will ask you the file, simple file, right? You can see, do you want to specify the structure of the content of the file? Yes, obvious. It by default saying yes. You don't have option to select no in this case. Why? Because we use write file operation, and the write file operation allows to create a file. So here what we have to do, we have to, let me go back, just confirm write file. Yeah. So here we have to provide the schema. So what schema we have to provide? So we are going to create CSV file. So I will select CSV only. So by default it's selected CSV. Let it be the same. Now go continue. So if you will move continue, it will ask you the sample file. So sample file which we already created here, this simple file, this one. So I will provide this simple file so that OIC will create file in this way. So I will just click on this drag and drop, and I have to select the file. So I will go to file here, and we created file with the name as simple employee file.csv, right? So I will select this one, and here you can see this file, whatever number of column we given to this file, that all column you will be able to see here: name, dob, role, doj, creation date, created by, and the integration name. And here you can see the first option here, it's showing that name of the record name and the record set name. These two are the mandatory field, and the record name and record set name are the nodes it will create when we will use this one. So let me use record name as rn, on the record set name as rsn, record set name short name. Sorry, this is not going to use in file, this is just for mapping purpose. I will show you where it will display. And now our file is comma separated, that's why it's automatically coming here comma. That's fine, I don't want to do any changes here. utf-8, that's fine. Optionally enclosed by double quotes, so that if our file name, if our column having comma values, it will not separate that comma in other columns. That's why we have double quotes. Double quotes that optionally enclosed by, terminated by end of line, that's fine. Here you can see we have one option, right? Use first row as column header, mark all as optional. So this will use most of the time when we are using read operations. So at the time of write operation, it's not mandatory to add or skip, so it will be same. So if we will not select this tick here, so whatever the file we loaded, it will skip this line, and it will consider this line as a header. So I don't want to do like that, so let it be same. And here you can see another tab is column underscore optional. So here you can see by default all columns are mandatory. Here you can see mandatory, right? We have two types of column, mandatory and optional. So by default all columns are mandatory, and when we are saying that all columns are mandatory, it means that there should be at least one record while creating the file. In the mapping you should provide at least one record, you have to provide. And obvious, that's why it's make that column as mandatory. So what you can do, for example, if you know that it is possible that our data file which we are going to create can have multiple records, and it is possible that role name, right, role column cannot have value for each and every record. It is possible that for all records role column will be empty. So if you will make this column as mandatory, it will generate an error, because this column is mandatory and at least one record should have value in this column. So we don't know, right, what kind of value we are getting, we will get. That's why I generally prefer that column as optional. So once you will select this tick columns as optionals, all the column by default will be selected as optional. Here you can see optional, optional. But it's mandatory to have at least one mandatory column in a stage file. So yeah, again it's got stuck. That's the big problem of generation 3. So let me add the file, stage file again. So this time I will go faster, I will not explain each and every point which I already explained. So here I will drag the stage file so that we can add. So I will give the name as stage write file underscore stage. Go continue. I have to select operation as write file. I have to give the file name. So file name which we are given in the variable here, name will be this one. This is the directory which we given, we want to create file here. And now go continue, it will ask the file. So sample will be csv only. I will select the sample file which you already created. I will give the name as r for record, rs for record set. Now I will make all column as optional. So here you can see all column are optional right now. If I will move further, it will throw an error, because at least one column should be mandatory. So right here you can see, if I will click continue, you can see please select one or more element as a mandatory. Column are known as element here, right? So I will do one thing, I will make first column as mandatory and go next. So once you will go, you can see this is configuration or summary page. Just click on finish. So once we click on finish, our file stage file is added here, stage file action. Now in stage file action, we got mapper automatically. And when we will use write file operation, we will get the mapper. This mapper will help us to provide the data, provide the value to this endpoint. So if you will click here, double click, you will be able to see the value which we have to map this one. So here you can see, while configuring the stage file, we provided the mapping as rs for record set. Inside that we have r for records. So here you can see this is the square bracket, multiple boxes. This defines that the array. So this multiple boxes is defining that this is the array. It means that we can map that multiple elements here or array elements here, so that it will automatically map, provide or pass all the elements to this endpoint or to this node. And you can see these all are the column available in the simplest file we provided, right? Simple file we provided. So now we have to provide the value in this mapping, so that file will be created based on this mapping, right? So here you can see from where we will get all this mapping. We will get all this mapping from the request payload only. So if you will open request wrapper, inside the request wrapper we have request data. This request data is something that we created the simple request payload, this request data. So if you will expand request data, you will be able to see all this column. You can see inside the request data we have all the column. And again here you can see this is the multiple box icon. This multiple box icon defines that this request data is array element. It means that this request data can have multiple values. Same here we have multiple values, right? We define this one. So what we can do, we will map this array element to this array element, so that automatically if this request data having 5 records, all these 5 records automatically map in this side, and it will pass all these 5 records to the stage file. In next videos we will use a loop also here. So now name, I will map this name with this name. Dob I will map with dob. Role I will map with this role. Date of joining I will map with this date of j. Now here we have creation date. So from where we will get the creation date? That's why in OIC we have predefined functions that is named as current functions, current dates, current date. So once you will search here current date, where we will get? So here you can see in the mapper right hand side, here you have this icon. Once you will click here, the mappers or the functions window will be open, and here you can search all the functions. And here you can see inside the functions we have category as date, and inside the date we have date function, that current date and current date time. Current date will return you the date only. Current date and time will return you the date plus time. So I just want current date, so I will drag this current date here. You can see this current date function will be mapped to this endpoint. Here you can see, make it tick here. So now created by, so this created by will be the integration run by, who run the integration. So these details we will get in the metadata, which I already explained. So if you will open this integration metadata, inside this metadata we have metadata details, and inside the metadata details we have runtime details, right? You can see. So if you will expand this runtime details, you will be able to get the invoked by. This invoked by is something that who ran this integration. Now last we have integration name. So again integration name you will get from the integration details endpoint. So once you will expand, you will be able to see the integration name, identifier, version. So I need only integration name, so I will map this integration name here. So now you can see these all are mapped. So automatically you can see we map this integration name fixed value here. So in request payload, if we have 5 records, this records will be repeated 5 times, and the same value creation date created by integration date will be repeated 5 times automatically, as we have mapped the array element here. Make sure you map this array element. If you will not map this array element, all 5 records will be coming in the single records only, single columns only. So please make sure of that. So click on this validate, and now go back. So now you can see once we validated, you can see this got dark green. It means that this mapper is configured. This mapper is configured. So now what we have to do, we just have to add the notification to send an email, right? So for adding the notification here, go to the action and you have to select the notification action here. So I will drag this action here. So let me drag this action again. And here first we have to provide the endpoint name. So I will give the endpoint name as email notification. And here we have to provide the details for all these columns. So first I want to provide the details in two. So in two I want to provide the details that to whom I am to send an email. So let me send an email to my email only, that Fox Oracle Apps Solutions at gmail.com. And let me add CC my email only. In CC I will provide my email, and remember, as this is a string value, so it should be in single quotes. So I will give the name as aaronzafar@gmail.com. Any other want to give your email, you can unmute yourself and tell me your name, your email, or else I will go with this two only. So now in BCC we can add, let us skip this time, from here. So from I will give the name as no reply at oracle.com, and this from can be configured in OCI. So whoever is your DB from your Oracle integration site, you can ask this from email. The subject I want to give as stage file learning, and body. So in the body I want to give it, hi team, please find attached CSV file which contains my details. Regards, OIC support team. So this is the message I want to give in body. And here you can see we have attachment, right? So attachment, we have to provide the file. So friends, this is the concept that whenever we are using a stage file write operation, this endpoint will create a file, and after creating the file it will give you the file reference in response. File reference is something that the pointer of the file, that file is already created, and it will give you the link for that file. In simple term, that file reference is something that you can consider a link of the file. So if you will refer the link, you will get the file. So here in this notification attachment we have to give the reference of the file. So here in attachment, once you will click on plus, so this, the source will be opened, and here you can see where which one is our endpoint. Our endpoint name is write file underscore stage. So if you will see write file underscore stage having two nodes, the one node is write file underscore stage, another one is the request. So this request is something that the mapper, this mapper is known as request here, and this endpoint is known as this one. So inside this, if you will open, you will be able to find the value which we provided in the mapping. You can see in the mapping we provided rs. Inside the rs we have r, and all are having this multiple values. So I don't want this one, I want response of this endpoint, and response of this endpoint you will find here write file underscore stage. Friend, don't be confused between this write file underscore stage underscore request. So request is something that the mapper which we use to provide the value, and this simple name is the response. So if you will expand, you will be able to find the right response. This is the write operation, and this is the response of this write operation. Expand, you can see write response, and inside that you will be find ICS file. You can see ICS file node store the file reference, and here you can see this is the file reference. So this file reference we have to map here. So I will drag this file reference here. So once we drag the file reference here, our file is linked to this notification, and here you can see this is the parameters. I will skip these parameters here, we can add these parameters too. So let me add the parameters also. So here in this email body, for example, if I want to provide the file name too, right? So we can provide. So I will give the file name here, file name, and here we have to provide the file name, but we don't have file name here, right? We have file name here only. If you'll open, we have file name in the expression, but expression we cannot use in body. That's why we have to create parameters. So for creating the parameters, I will create here, no parameters is there, I will click on this plus icon, so that parameters will be created. This parameters is only for notification, you cannot find these parameters outside this notification. So I will give the parameters name as p underscore file name. I will copy this parameters name, and here what value this parameter will store. So whatever variable, whatever endpoints you are able to see, that will be accessible here. So we have one variable name as var underscore file name, so we'll use var underscore file name here, right? So our parameters, that is p underscore file name, is going to store the variable values, that is var underscore file name. So now this p underscore file name parameters you can use in body. In your body, instead of these parameters, you cannot use any dynamic values. So here what I will do, I have to provide the file name. So if you will see, I will pass the file name here. So compiler can, or that OIC can confuse, right, the notification. This p underscore file name is the fixed values or variable name, how it will identify. That's why we have concept of braces here. So here p underscore file name you have to provide in the bracket, so that once you will provide this one in bracket, so that compiler, whenever this bracket will start, compiler will understand that okay, we are going to get the file name, and here we given the file name and the bracket close. So at runtime, compiler will change this p underscore file name value with the value available in this p underscore file name, and the p underscore file name we have stored the value of this variable, and that variable we provided the hard coded values. So this is the way we configure the notification. Just click outside so that this can be saved. You can see notification is added here. Let me save our integrations. Now here, this is the mapper of integration response. So I have to provide the response, right? So I will just click here. So as of now, I'm just going to provide hard coded values or the fixed value in response as success. This success and error I will define based on logic, based on condition in our upcoming integrations. So I will give fixed value as success, and file name I will give. So file name which we already added in the variable, that var underscore file name, I will map this file name here, right? So you can see the reason behind using this variable. If we didn't use this variable in the file name, right, so each and every time we have to write the file name manually. We have to provide the hard coded file name here. We have to provide the file name in the notification. We have to provide the file name here. But if we created variable, the same variable we used everywhere, so that we don't need to write the same value again and again. So now our integration is ready. We have one error as business identifier, so let me add the business identifier. So in the request, what I will do, I will just go and I will give the name as request payload, the business identifier here. Just give outside, save integrations. You can see integration is configure status, it's ready to run. So go back and I will activate this integration. So I will select as debug so that we can check. So our integration is going to be activated. It will take a bit time. Let me open the email first here. And now I have to run this integration. So let me run this integration. And when I'm going to run this integration in the request payload, you can see we have to provide the data. So here you can see this is the data. This is the sample data which we provided while configuring the endpoint. This is the sample data, right? So what I will do, let me copy this sample data so that I can add value in this one here. So let me, instead of Alex, let me make as Akash as Python developer. Let it be same. Here I will give as Sachin, role as cricketer. Let me add another person, Rahul, role as creator, wicket keeper. Right, so let me add these three records only. I'm just going to create run integration with this file. Right, we provided this request payload here with this all these three values. Now I am going to click on run. So when we will click on run, this value will be passed to this integration, and this integration will perform action. So just click on this run here. Here you can see integration got executed, and in response we got the message status as success and the file name. This is the file name which we given to the variable, and this is the message which we provided hard coded in the mapping. So now you can see integration got executed. If we will refresh this one, so you can see here first we added the trigger endpoint. So in the trigger endpoint, if you will open here, you will be able to see the value, which value we passed to the integration. This is the same value. By this, using this way only, you can debug your integration. If you will find any error, you can debug. So this is the value which we pass to the integration. After this, we added assign variable. You can see default assign. In the default assign, we created one variable name as var file name, and we assign the value to the variable, that is file name xxemp01.csv. After that, we added the stage file. You can see write file underscore stage. These all two are the mapper for this. And if you will open here, you will be able to see the value, which value we pass to this stage file endpoint. You can see write file underscore stage. This write file stage having what kind of values? So you can see these are the value coming from request payload and the creation date, this one created by this one, and the integration name. These are we provided in the mapping only, right? So all these three record we pass to this mappers of this stage file. Based on this, what it will done, it created the file. You can see message processed by stage file, message received by a stage file. It means that the request payload which we provided, message processed by, it means the response payload which we got from write file stage. If you will open, you will be able to see the details. So what all details are there, let me copy, go to the notepad, and here you can see. So in response of write file, what we receive the file reference. This is the same file reference we map to the notification. So that you can see this file reference is the pointer of the file. Here you can see even in this content the file name, and this are the pointer of the file. So that using this reference, OIC can move to this same location. This is the file name, this is the file type, the directory, this is the size 320 byte, or this is the last modification time and all. They are using their internal format, that Unix formats and all. So this is the response, and this response we map in the notification, right? So now here you can see we got the response. After that, you can see we added the email notification. You can see this is the endpoint name I given as email notification. And if you will open that, what value we pass to the email notifications, if you will open here, you can see these are the value we configure in the notification. So what value are there, you can see subject as a stage file learning, and after that we have from address we given no reply, and here you can see the plain text. To address we given our email id. In body, here you can see we given the message hi team, please find attached csv, and all the same details. Here you can see file name is equal to the file name, runtime it fixed, regards OIC supports and all, right? To address, cc address and all. And after that you can see integration got ended by providing the mapping here. So if you will click here, you will be able to see the value which we receive as a response. And let me move to the email, and here you can see we receive an email, hi team, please find attached csv file which contain employee details. And here you can see the file name having the value, the same file name which we map through the variable. And here you can see this is the attachment which we receive. In this attachment we have one thing missing, let me show you that one too. So once you will click here, you will be able to see the file with these three records, right? If we will run this integration, and if we will add one more records, for example, let me add few more records here. So in the first only, if suppose I'm just going to pass one more record as Alex, and if I'm going to pass this four record to this integration, you can see Alex, the four records, integration will be created with these four records, and it will send an email, and again that email will having the four records. Here I will show you. You can see we got an email just now. You can see 118, and I will click here. You will see this is the latest file we got 0 minute ago. If you will open, you will be able to see the four records here, right? But one thing in missing is the header. We are not able to see the header in this file. So why we are not able to see the header? If you remember, write file action is going to create file, and the file will store what kind of data, it will provided in the mapping. And if you will see in the mapping, we have not provided the header, we just provided the value, right? That's why this state file which we received, the file doesn't have the header. So in OIC, if you want to create file with header, you have to provide header also in the mapping only. If you will not provide, because for us, right, for us, for human being, this is a csv file, and we know that the first record is considered as a header. We as a human being know, but computer doesn't know that first file record is header, right? We have to explain that the first record is header. So as of now, if you will see, this one is header and these three records are there. But no, if you want to add header, you have to provide header as a value to this stage file. So in upcoming session or next session, I will explain you this point, how we can configure. And in next session only, we will learn about a stage file, different operations. So this is enough for today. We already got late. Thank you so much everyone for joining. If you have any other queries and you want to ask, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your queries. Thank you so much again for joining.